Good morning, good cold morning, and welcome to Economic Standing Policy Committee. I see we've got an echo here. All right, for Tuesday, November 8th, we'll start off, Madam City Clerk, with a roll call.
Hello. Yes, thank you, Mayor Higgin. Councillor Campbell?
Present.
Councillor Carlson?
Good morning.
Councillor Croson? Councillor Dodick?
Present.
Councillor Middleton Hope?
Present.
Councillor Palladino?
Present.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel?
Here.
Mayor Parker?
Present.
And Mayor Higgin.
Present. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We're going to start off with an election of vice chairman. So for economic standing, and so I'll hereby call the nominations for the position of vice chairman open. Is there anybody to be nominated for? Hands are just flying up.
Mayor Higgin, maybe I could give an explanation. So it's 1 year since we've had vice chair, and terms are only for 1 year, and it's now after the organizational meeting. So that's when the committees will select from their bodies a vice chair, a chair and a vice chair. The mayor, by his position, is chair, but the vice chair needs to be selected from the body.
Madam City Clerk, I thought it was January 1st was the start of that, but it's...
For public members, but for council members, it
Right.
starts right after the org meeting.
Okay. Org meeting last week or 2 weeks ago?
24th.
Oh, Councillor Middleton Hope, what's your name stand? Anyone else?
I'd do it again if nobody else wanted to.
Great. All right, we have two. Councillor Middleton Hope and Deputy or Acting Mayor was here this previous year. So,
Come on, John, let's go with
or do you want to get a vote? If you had it a year, pass it on.
I'm good. If you want to do it, go nuts.
Well, you're acting mayor and deputy mayor, so I don't do that for another year.
So I take it he's wanting to.
Go, yeah, you're good.
Okay.
I'm happy to give it up to you, John. Sure.
All right. Well, I will put down Councillor Middleton Hope. Do you agree to put your name forward for the nomination of vice chairman?
Yes.
Come on, it's only Tuesday. All right. And I see no others. Can I have a motion to cease nominations? With that, I declare elected as vice chairman by acclamation, Councillor Middleton Hope. Congratulations.
That's a silent clap, Jeff.
So I got my mute button working.
I do have a motion from the consent agenda from Vice Chair Middleton Hope. Consent agenda, 2022-1018 Economic Standing Policy Committee minutes and 2022-1019 Economic Standing Policy Committee minutes. So those 2 days. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Anyone has any issues with them? Comments, concerns, complaints?
Mayor Higgin, we did have notification of a clerical, and that was for October 19th. I believe Councillor Dodick was voted or noted as he was present for 5.3 Lethbridge DMO funding. So we will correct that.
Okay, for clarification, I was present for most of it, but I was upstairs on a phone conference, so I wasn't here for the vote, for the $10,000 vote. So I should be, I suppose, marked absent. I could tell you which way I would have voted, but it wouldn't have been with the majority, so I'll just give you a hint.
Oh, gee. Thank you so much for that. All right, do noted. Do noted. All right, with that, we'll have a motion to go in camera. Oh, sorry.
We just need to vote on that, the consent
Yes, on
agenda.
consent agenda, and I see there's no, besides the clerical,
Right, so then I'll call a question. Thank you.
question's been called. All in favor? Oh, just,
Yes, we do. We're going to do that adoption of agenda next.
all right. All in favor again on that, just to make sure, if we got everyone, okay. Any opposed? So carries. All right.
Want to make a motion for the adoption of the agenda? Sorry, we
My
don't,
pleasure.
A motion forward for the adoption of the agenda. Any questions?
Mayor Higgin, also with regards to 7.2 on this agenda, administration has notified us that they would like to postpone that item. And is there a date for postponement, City Treasurer?
And which number is this?
7.2.
7.2.
It is Phase 1 to 3 KPMG and other operational review summary and update.
To the chair through to, I guess, to the city clerk in this regard. In regards to the actual next piece of that, we just weren't able to get to that information here in the timely fashion. As for if or Economic XPC would like this to come back, probably sometime in 2023, just for the amount of work that we have between now and year end with budget. So,
For timeline, would you say first quarter, just so we've got that some timeline on?
might be better to say second quarter, and that way that we'll try to come back earlier than that, but the first quarter, we're pretty tied up in we'll go right from operating budget back into year end, and so we'll be quite tight there.
We'll put in by, can we say June 30th? All right. Is that fine with you, Councillor Middleton Hope?
Yes.
7.2. All right. Any debate on that? All in favor of that postponement? Any opposed? Carries.
I'm not sure if administration had some other changes to the agenda. I think Councillor Carlson wanted to speak, and also the
Councillor
city
Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on item 6.1. Do we know have a time for that presentation, just in case we're in closed session, just for them if they're waiting in the building?
They are in the building. I did see them out here. so-
notified them that it would probably be 10:30 or later. We can let them know. I think City Treasurer, do you?
Yeah, through the chair, once again, I think probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock before we might get to that with the number of items on in camera if we want to continue that way.
Okay,
Right,
thank you. I just wanted to make sure for them, if they're waiting around, they can try to go do other things. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. And yes, if we do find that we're going a little later, we can pull out from our in-camera and go into the public and go back in after to in-camera.
Yeah, I'm hearing that we want to bring forward section 8 to be done first, the closed session. We'll need a motion to bring forward that section to be done first.
Oh, to move in front of presentations, I'm sorry, yes, to take the confidential items and in closed sessions prior to the presentation. Is there any questions on that or any concerns with us moving that forward? Seeing none, we will do that. And I think with that, we can enter into closed session. So I have a motion.
Treasurer would like to speak.
City Treasurer?
So, Mr. Mayor, there's probably one other change on the agenda there in the closed session, if we handle that in the closed session or if we handle that now. But we would like to move up 1.4. So 1.1, then go to 1.4 and leave 1.2 and 1.3 later on, just be more conducive to staffing coming in.
That could be done in closed. Let me bring that forward to public after. All right, any further comments? No debate? Okay, with that, I'll take the motion from Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel for an enter closed session. All in favor? Any opposed? Carries. Good afternoon, and thank you for your patience, those that are in the gallery. We'll move back to Economic Standing Policy Committee for November the 8th. And we'll continue on with 6.1, a presentation from Terry Huseman, General Manager of Business Operations, and Trevor Lewington, the Chair of the Governance Committee. So if there's anything else, move on forward.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you and to you to the rest of the committee. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you here today. Those of you that know me well enough know that I'm not a hockey guy. In fact, me on skates is probably the least graceful picture that you can imagine. However, a close second to that disgrace would be us coming back in a number of months to tell you that we're unable to make our capital recontribution as a result of lost revenues. And so that's why we're here, actually, is to talk to you a little bit about our canary in the coal mine moment, and hopefully seek your feedback and your advice on how we might move forward. And if I can get Mr. Westerson just to move to slide 3. We want to be a better partner. That's why we're here. We appreciate the feedback that you gave us last time to use this venue, so thank you for that. We are making changes to be a stronger member of our community and a stronger contributor to our community. More to come on our strategic plans and our governance changes in 2023. We've been recognized by the WHL a number of times for our turnaround in business results. And of course, COVID was brutal like it was on everyone else. We know that paid parking at the NMAX Center is a very small micro issue amongst a very long list of things that you get to deal with in this room, particularly at this time of year as you walk into budget. But part of the reason you see a number of staff and board members behind us is it's a bit more existential for us. It's about, quite frankly, our survival. And so we want to make sure that you're clear on kind of what we see coming down the line. So if we can go to the next slide, please. I do want you to know that the gentleman standing beside me and his team have done a marvelous job, quite frankly, of delivering on the required business results. So season tickets have been renewed at the time of this presentation at 99%. So we are back to our budgeted levels there. Thanks to very strong support of the business community in Lethbridge, we've also sold 100% of our advertising inventory. So we are doing the work. We're also being proactive. We've already begun cutting expenses in a number of different categories without compromising, frankly, the player experience. That's partly why we exist. And secondarily, the fan experience, because that's the other reason we exist. So to dig into a few of those details, I'll hand it to my colleague here to speak to some of the nitty-gritty, and then I'll come back with a few things that we'd like you to think about.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, everybody. Next slide, please. Just want to take us through here just to show you an idea of where we're at and where we're trending with the attendances over the last, through the last 6 years, sorry. What we're seeing this year, obviously, is a big shortage in our group in walk-up tickets that we've seen a largest decline. Sales staff has raised some concerns to us over the minimal commitment to our group sales, and then concerns noted from prospects of paid parking. Presently, we're down 400 to 500 fans per game. This is going to be a result of about 22% of through our budget for the first 5 games of the season. If we continue on this pace, we will lose over $200,000 this season. As a not-for-profit, player-centric organization, the Lethbridge Hurricanes budget for a break-even every year, including fulfilling our capital repayment obligation to the city. Next slide, please. Community fundraising support. The Lethbridge Hurricanes 50-50 program is used to fund player education and the Hockey Hounds' commitments to the community donations. Education program costs can run between $160,000 to $200,000 annually, and the Hockey Hounds have donated $15,000 annually to Lethbridge Minor Hockey from this fund. That doesn't even account for the money, for the other money that the team does from their side. Lethbridge Hurricanes are mandated by the WHL to maintain a 50% liability fund for future educational costs. Right now, that liability sits at about $650,000. We're currently one of only a few teams in the league that are able to say that we have a fully funded liability fund. 50-50 has seen a 33% decrease compared to the budget after the first 5 games, and an even larger decrease based off past seasons. As you can see, we enjoyed $1.90 per fan in the 2019-20 season. During the 21-22, when we had significantly lower attendance due to restrictions, we had a 14% decrease. And then this year, we have moved up again to a 20% decrease. We are on pace to fall short of the 50-50 budget by $66,000. The budgeted revenue of we had a budgeted revenue of $200,000 for the 22-23 season. Next slide. Part of our fundraising impact, the Lethbridge Hurricanes donate and help raise funds for the community, groups, and organizations in excess of $175,000 annually. Some of those groups that enjoy money that we help raise money for is the United Way, Lethbridge Minor Hockey, Canadian Cancer Society, Kids Sports, and Rotary Schools, etc. United Way is down presently 38% from previous seasons for the first 5 games, and they run an in-game jersey raffle at each game. As a result of the lower attendance, all these community organizations and donations are at risk to be negatively impacted. Next slide. The Lethbridge Hurricanes have taken pride over the last 7 seasons in turning a profit as well as receiving recognition on a WHL level. 3-time WHL Eastern Conference Business of the Year, 2020 WHL Business of the Year, 2-time WHL Executive of the Year award, 2-time Eastern Conference final appearances, made playoffs every year, provides incremental revenue potential. At a time of declining profits within the WHL, the Lethbridge Hurricanes have been able to break even or show a profit for 7 straight seasons. Next slide. The Lethbridge Hurricanes' intent is to put forth a bid to host the 2026 Memorial Cup. In 2019, the Memorial Cup host Halifax saw an economic impact of just over $20.5 million, bigger than the recent Tim Hortons Brier in Lethbridge. The CHL requires the host team to be an economically viable organization in order to be considered with a proven track record. Our history of success is now at risk. The current revenue trajectory will result in a financial loss and put this bid in jeopardy. So potential risks looking ahead, we're facing a 6-figure annual loss. The Hurricanes were in debt over $1 million prior to the 15-16 season. Unable to make payroll and resulting in us having to come up with other ideas like selling par value shares. Unable to meet our education liability commitments for the future. Unable to support local community organizations and group fundraising, forcing them to look elsewhere. For an example, coming to you looking for more funds. Current advertising support will diminish as attendance decreases, and so does advertising. And the worst of all would probably be unable to continue operations. Council consideration. I'll pass this back to Trevor.
So we know you have the challenge of balancing the books and delivering on a very challenging inflationary period. So that's not lost on us. We know that Mr. Gallucci and his team also have the challenges of delivering on the objectives that you've provided to them. But at a time when other WHL teams are returning to pre-COVID attendance levels, the Hurricanes have seen a lag in attendance. And you may recall from our previous correspondence a number of months ago that all of the mid-sized communities where a WHL franchise has seen the implementation of paid parking, those venues have subsequently moved away from it because of lost revenues inside the venue. So that's concessions and other things. And so we're seeing an impact on our attendance. We're going to imagine that that's having an impact on concession and other revenues for the NMAX Center itself. So, for you to think about is, why are we seeing that trend in Lethbridge in isolation to other communities? Our belief is that paid parking is part of that story. We believe that, paid parking certainly, is it delivering on the net revenue expectations? Are there other opportunities? Are there other solutions that would benefit us and benefit the venue? And likewise, if we're seeing that initial decline, a pretty significant 22% reduction on attendance and essentially what are our sales, I'm going to imagine that it's having a similar impact on the NMAX Center. So we're looking for your feedback in terms of how you would like us to work differently and look at potential solutions. But our primary concern is being able to fulfill our capital repayment obligations to you at the end of this season. And in the current trajectory, we will simply not be able to do that. So we're here for that dialogue, for that conversation, and we wanted to make sure you were keenly aware of sort of what we see after the first 5 games. And with that, we'd certainly welcome any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. I do have questions. Councillor Middleton-Ho.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. Very enlightening. So I have a couple of comments and questions. So this is not an industry-wide issue. This is not a league-wide issue. This is a Lethbridge issue. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Your analysis of that identifies what sources as being the culprits for a reduction in attendance and a reduction in revenues.
So, again, I come back to the point when we look across the league who are under similar economic circumstances, when I look at our level of corporate sponsorship being at 100%, our season ticket holders have embraced and returned as they always have. The only variable or the only change that we've seen in the nature of our operations really is the paid parking. And I think that's, again, that's anecdotal, but that's really only the variable, the assignable cause that we could point to. And so our concern is if this trend continues, obviously that we'll end up in a loss position. And I think there's probably a need to look at, if we look at the NMAX Center's revenues, are you seeing that in other revenue sources? Is paid parking have a similar effect on other events? We don't have visibility on that information. We only have our very narrow slice of the pie. But I would imagine that, that the trend probably spans across other events and other things. And so it'd be interesting for us to see if you are seeing maybe a bigger decline, worse decline. Maybe there's no decline. Maybe it's just us. We just don't have visibility on that information.
So you know what my position was on parking at the NMAX Center. So what's the alternative?
Well, I think that's why we're here, quite frankly. Are there other revenue generation opportunities? Are there other fees? Are there other services? Are there other things that we can do? At the end of the day, people are going to vote with their feet, right? People vote by their attendance, through their attendance, for the experience that they expect for the price point they're paying. The other challenge that we have that's, again, specific to the hockey space is the relative price point of our ticket compared to, say, a concert ticket. So a $5 parking fee on a multi-$100 outing to go to the concert of your choice, that's a very different sort of percentage impact as opposed to $5 on a $20 or $25 ticket. So we do think that there's probably a disproportionate negative impact on hockey just based on the price point and the relative overall size of parking in that grand scheme of things.
Okay. My last question, and then I'll cede the floor, is you talked in terms of $175,000 of funds which are donated. Are these funds that the Hurricanes are actually donating to these groups, or is it revenue that is generated by these groups using the facility? So I see that as quite different in terms of you're actually generating funds for these groups.
It's fairly complex, so I'll let Terry speak to sort of the different tiers or the different channels of where those revenues come from and how they flow.
Thanks.
Great question. So basically what it is for us is we either help generate or donate. So we look at generating the funds within the game as part of helping them generate. They come to us, they look for fundraising opportunities, we give them those opportunities to fundraise, as well as that we do have a number of donations that we do as well.
So can you divide that down? Can you split that out for me? How much money are you actually giving away to these groups?
I would say that when we give away, the money that we give away is probably close to $60,000 a year, and the rest is help generate that money.
That gives me a clearer understanding for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question, Mr. Eastman. A question I would have is the discussion came forward about a drop in attendance, but a question that I've always had is our current attendance, so I'm talking season ticket holders, so that part of the attendance, is that dipped as well?
Our season ticket base, we renewed at a 99% level to last year's numbers. We've experienced a 10% decrease from pre-COVID numbers.
For walk-up?
No, not for season tickets.
So you have a 10% drop pre-COVID, so you're still at almost 100% of what
on the
your
season ticket base, yeah.
And yet the difference of your walk-up has been, what percentage would you say in up to date?
We feel that it's drops almost 70%.
Almost 70%. Question I have for Mr. City Manager as a designate. This is obviously would affect the walk-in traffic for any of the concessions, et cetera, that we have within the facility. Is there someone that could ask that question? I see Mr. Galucci here. Have we seen a decrease in our food services, for example? Yeah.
Your Worship, we have seen a slight decrease. However, we've also seen a decrease in attendance, a gap between sold tickets and people actually attending games within the building at the scan count. So it's a little harder for us to tell between what the effect is. Is it just less people attending the game, or is it an actual decrease from where we are? But it is a slight decrease, yeah. I'd say about 5 to 8%.
Okay, and the last question, and then I will hop out as I have more later, is, so with the season tickets that have been sold, so we're close to that 100%, do you find that the attendance of those, because I know a lot of people that have season tickets may not show up, is it pretty similar to previous years, or is there a way to track that?
I don't necessarily have a way to track on our season ticket base. Kim's team may have that. I can tell you that our number of drop counts in the past were around 600 to 700. So a drop count, you have a paid ticket, but you don't show up. Now it's running around 1,000. So.
Okay, thank you. I'll pop out for now. Councillor Carlson.
Oops. Thank you, Mayor Hagan. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation information. Quick question just to help me. On your final slide, you do talk about the other WHL teams are returning to pre-COVID levels. Do you have those stats available for council?
Yeah, we can share with you sort of aggregated numbers. Although the by team numbers exist, those are confidential to the league, so we would probably have to endeavor to get permission to share those with you on a team by team basis, but we can certainly share the trends and regions, and we can certainly investigate to see what level of detail we can provide.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. And I do hate to conflate causation with correlation, but that'll help me understand, just because if there is something specific to Lethbridge, I'd love to know what that is. Another question, I thought, Mr. Husman, you said season tickets were also down about 10% from pre-COVID levels, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And season ticket holders don't pay for parking, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Hagan.
Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. To the city manager or designate, since we are talking about parking, I'd like to talk a little more generally. I'm getting concerns in the public, complaints in the public, that our Flowbird parking, the app, is hard to load up, is hard to work with. Are you hearing that in the community as well? Is there something that just from the system that we put in that is not supporting people trying to do paid parking?
Thanks for the question. Overall, we haven't heard any feedback from the overall parking across the city using the app. It's not something that we have been aware of. I don't know if at the NMAX Center, in particularly, Mr. Galucci has any concerns or if I've heard anything about it, but across the city, it's not something that we have been aware of.
All right, well then I'll let you know that I'm getting complaints that I just got on the weekend, and I will pass more of them along as I hear them, because if I'm getting them, I assume others are as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Hagan.
Yeah, as far as the MX Center goes, we have not heard any complaints either about the Flowbird app. In fact, we heard it's a little bit easier to use than the previous app from some of our patrons.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just can someone remind me, is there a revenue sharing agreement with the Hurricanes in terms of other things that are going on at the NMAX? I'm thinking tonight there's a Bryan Adams concert sold out. Is there any agreement between what happens there and what the Hurricanes are doing or getting? Or okay, I'll let you answer.
Not with concerts. The city and the Hurricanes have I would say a rather a very complicated contract that has different revenue sharing options within it, and those are specific to junior hockey Everything else that is not junior hockey is not, the Hurricanes do not participate in.
Is that something that could be considered, or is that too complicated?
That would be rather complicated, given that we work with different promoters and different agents, so it would be adding a third party, which would not be common. It's not impossible, but it would really complicate things.
Okay, just, thank you very much.
Councilor Palladino.
Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. You say you're presently down 400 to 500 fans per game, resulting in a 22% below budget. In the first 5 games, you know, you've got about 30 games left. I'm just wondering if you're not pushing the panic button a little early.
Thanks for the question. You know, I don't believe that we're pushing the panic button too early. We hear from our fan base too, in regards to what's holding them back from coming. I've seen some surveys in the community through the media, and those are on the positive end of things. We just wanted to make sure that we got it forefront and told you from where we stand, or what it looks like, and what the long-term impact could be, because that'll put us back into a level of uncomfortableness that we once faced back in 15, 16, and we worked hard to get out of that, and we don't want to be back there again. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you both very much for your presentation. To start with, Mr. City Manager, through you or your designate, which I guess would be Mr. Galucci, you said there's no revenue sharing with the Hurricanes. Is that specific to all seats, or is that specific to box seats? So there's no revenue sharing at all for any other events?
Sorry, yeah, actually, that would be the one exception. So for the box suites, we do revenue share with those, which would be on a year-round basis. So that would include all events in that case.
And what percentage is that, please?
It's 50% of gross.
Gross? Okay. Following up to that, where are the parking revenues at right now since we've implemented paid parking? I know we wanted to wait a few more months to see where that is at, but what are the parking revenues that we're currently seeing?
We currently have our first 5, the first 5 games we took we've made about $7,000, which is a little bit lower than our original budget, but it is fitting with our revised budget in June of 2022 when we reevaluated and took into account the season ticket holders who would receive parking passes.
Okay, what about for all events, including Hurricanes events? What's our whole revenue total sitting at for paid parking right now?
Our whole revenue total would be roughly around the 12,000 mark to date. We do have some other events coming up, so.
And then just one more question, I'll jump out of the queue and let somebody else in. What is our cost revenue analysis on that then for paid parking? So how much have we paid out in costs? How does that compare?
In costs, roughly, you know, it costs us a little bit about roughly around $280 for enforcement per event. And then we have some small fees that we pay, which are just transactional fees, and 10 cents per transaction, which is a Flowbird fee. So roughly our costs would be around $2,000 at the moment. I'm rounding. I don't have that number exactly in front of me.
So we've made $12,000 and spent $2,000 since we've implemented paid parking.
Correct.
So a total of 10,000 has come in. Okay, thank you very much. I'll come back in.
I have a question, Mr. City Manager, or as designate. I see that there's multiple events, and I also see a couple that I'm aware of, that are offering free parking at the NMAX. I know there's a Christmas event, I believe, and another one, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me here. Could you speak a little bit to that? And my concern would be where we've got free parking, obviously, for season ticket holders. There's parking on events, as we've already heard, of $110, $120, $130 ticket, or $90 ticket. $5 is fairly minor. But I'm seeing here that there's some offered free parking for events, and I struggle with that, and I just want to know if there's an explanation for that. I don't know if City Manager or Mr. Galucci.
Yeah, typically our banquet and anything that's like classified as a banquet event or a meeting event we do not charge for parking. Those events typically fit in our lounge. They're small in numbers. They are 40 to 150 people. And so it really doesn't pay for us to bring in enforcement to do those, and because they're just so small. So we don't really bother with those. Outside of that, all ticketed events, large ticket events, are paid parkings in place and enforced.
There's no free parking on larger events. Like I thought I saw a Christmas craft thing or something. That's just going to be in the lounge then?
Oh, that is the one. That's our trade show Christmas event. That one we have made an exception for because it's our first time with that event. We have made some exceptions starting out this year, just due to implementing it throughout and trying to get some things off the ground. It's like with the Hurricanes preseason games, we didn't enforce any paid parking there as well. So this is just because it's a first-time event and we're trying to get it off the ground.
All right, it's just that perception is I've heard numerous times isn't good. But regardless, I'll pop out. Councillor Midland Hope.
Thank you. So this question would be for Mr. Galucci. Mr. Galucci, you indicated that income from parking is about $12,000 thus far, and your costs are about $2,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So what did it cost you to implement the parking?
The overall,
Machines, all the machines, the app, everything else. What did that cost you?
the one-time costs are coming in roughly around $60,000.
Correct. So that should be part of the picture, and it's not, because it actually costs us $60,000. It costs us ongoing $2,000 for the first 5 events. Is that correct?
Yes. The first that includes our PBR, first 5 games plus a few events. Yeah.
$60,000 to implement this. It's costing us about $2,000 for the first 5 games, so $400 or $500 per game, and we've generated an income of about $12,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So are you asking us then to allow you to move away from this method of charging for parking, or do you have some other recommendation that you're trying to bring forward for us? Do you have any solutions? Because clearly, as you've indicated, you can't continue, because by the end of the season, you're going to be $200,000 in the hole. So, and I agree with that. I think that's something we want to try and avoid. So what's the option here?
Sorry, is that question for me?
Sure. Anybody that wants to jump in and take it.
Good question again. That's why we're here. We welcome any kind of sit down that we can to negotiate what other ways to generate revenue in the building, outside the building, other methods if it includes attaching a fee to our tickets, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, we have to find another way to make it happen.
Okay, thanks.
Acting Mayor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. So this to the Hurricanes representatives. Can you review your current financial reserves for me again?
I'm sorry, what part of the financial reserves are you looking for?
What kind of financial reserves do you have right now in place?
In our bank account, that sort of thing?
Yeah, what are your financial reserves? What money are you
We
sitting
currently
on
have an
unspent?
education fund that is fully funded. Would be up, what's overfunded actually, it's sitting in around 775,000. We're not allowed to touch that because it's allocated for that. We're sitting presently in a good positive standing in our bank account as well.
When is the bid due for the 2026 Memorial Cup? When do you start working on that?
We'll start working on it within the next year.
Final question I have, given that COVID was particularly brutal over the past few years, and we do know we see that with all our fee-for-services, were there any bonuses awarded over the past couple of years?
The only bonuses that were awarded were contractual. Those were in the contracts of the employees. And the only way there's a contract, any kind of that's paid is if we're in a positive standing, so.
So you paid it out because you were in a positive standing?
Absolutely.
The question, you're good there, Acting Mayor? Yeah, I was just looking at the email we got here. Okay. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. Again, thank you, gentlemen. Just curious if you have any stats on the preseason games and how they compared, just because that would help me. There was no parking fees associated with those. So do you have those, or can you share those, or do you track those?
Yeah, no, we tracked it. There was roughly between 600 and 1,000 per game. We had 2 games. That was, I mean, if we go back to it and we say there was no paid parking for it, yes, we appreciate the fact that there was no paid parking, but that was in the infancy of when we were going to implement it. So I do feel that the first game fell under the time frame that we weren't implementing paid parking, and the second one fell under that time frame, which resulted in them making the decision not to charge it. So we appreciated that from them.
Okay, and how does that compare to previous seasons' attendance?
It was roughly the same.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody knew, though, that there was no paid parking.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. I just was wondering about the Memorial Cup bid. Is there, like the Briar, I know the council had to put up $1 million. Is that kind of the same scenario for bidding on the Memorial Cup? And or would you be having to come to council to ask for that?
As with any major sporting event, that's part of the reason council has the foresight to put aside the major event hosting grant. And so certainly there would be some consideration for how that might be deployed to secure a significant event. As Mr. Huseman pointed out, the impact of the Memorial Cup in Halifax was larger than the Briar, so that's something we'd like to bring to Lethbridge and see us enjoy that impact as well.
So is there a down payment that you know of, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, the league, of course, is still defining its process, and we'll begin that in about a year, so we will certainly be back with additional information once we learn exactly what all the requirements are.
Oh, so that's great. Thank you very much.
Stay tuned to come.
Stay tuned. All right, thank you.
Okay. I see no further questions, but I did want to ask, I know you're all here from the Hurricanes here to talk about this and try to figure out what we may be able to do. If there's something that could be forwarded on to council, because rather than just receive and file the information, is if there's something that you could pick that would be, if we could do this, I think it would alleviate some of the pressures. Do you have any of those particular thises that you would have? Is there anything that I know we've talked about some of the advertising and I'm just wondering if there's something, because receive and file is, okay, we'll work on something and then at a later date a council member can bring something forward, but I'm wondering if there's something that could be forwarded, if there's a resolution out there to send it to council, if there's something that you've thought. I'm sure that as far as revenue generating, there's been something.
Well, I've spent the last quite a few months trying to think of different ideas and come up with different solutions. So obviously, we could sit down, we would look at an opportunity as maybe if we take what their revenue generation is on their budget, what it looks like, could we implement a 50-cent per ticket charge to offset that or make even more revenue for them to meet their budget means? That's something that we'd be willing to sit down and discuss with them on top of it. That would eliminate parking altogether, and it would also help them generate extra revenue.
Right, and to Mr. City Manager's designate, these continued meetings just to be able to share some of these ideas and collaborate on solutions are ongoing or can be ongoing, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I believe my team, because I was away, met with Hurricanes, some of the team within the last week or so. Is that correct, Terry?
It was 2 weeks ago, yes. Yep.
Okay, great. Councillor Middleton Hope?
One last question in regards to conducting analysis. What's the rest of the league doing to generate revenue? What pitfalls can we avoid?
Well, other than Edmonton and Calgary, no other team in the league charges for paid parking. There is sorry, I shouldn't say that. Kelowna also does. But they also offer a free parking option there. But that is a privately owned facility. That's not a city-owned facility. So whether it's revenue generation sharing with the partner, whether it's opportunities to create those service fees, those are the sorts of things that they deal with day to day in their contracts and leases.
So, if I may supplement,
yeah, please.
You know, so I do want to just remind the committee that you know, the Hurricanes organization has been recognized multiple times by the league for its business turnaround and has received a designation of Business of the Year because of the revenue generation. So it's everything from the store where we sell merchandise that, you know, we're very fortunate to have a loyal fan base. You've probably seen the license plates, and many of you own the jackets and sweaters. So, you know, that's part of it. It's the in-game experience. So again, the Hurricanes organization is looking for those value-added opportunities that people are willing to pay a premium for, that drive incremental revenue, that are, you know, whether it's plush seating or the party deck. So that there's creative ways to provide that value, and even though it's often the same fan base, again, if you can provide a different experience, people are usually willing to pay a premium. And so I think one of the things that we would encourage further dialogue on is what are some of those other opportunities to take the existing ticket base and extract additional dollars, because we can add enhancements to the venue, to, you know, the experience, to the, you know, VIP treatment, those kinds of things that we've seen. But, you know, to the team's credit, part of the things that we're focused on as a board is governance in the future, because the day-to-day operations are quite well, and they dug us out of $1 million hole through generating a lot of those incremental revenues, which most other teams, I would say, look to us for best practices rather than the other way around.
Okay.
Okay, see no further questions, and I'm thinking if there was anyone, a council member, that would entertain receive for information, and I don't have a motion on the floor currently, so if that's Councillor Middleton Hope, receive for information. But I do want to emphasize the importance of our administration updating, keeping council up to date on, you know, the different efforts that are going in to help alleviate some of these concerns that we've heard today from the Hurricanes. And if there's something in the future, a member of council can bring forward a resolution to help with that. So with that, is there any other debate? I'll have you open your receive and file debate if you could.
Well, if anyone is willing to enter into debate on this issue, by all means, now would be the time.
Councillor Campbell?
All I want to say is just, I mean, I think it's a terrific organization. You've done what you need to do, but I just still think we need to keep talking, keep the discussion going. Let's figure a way to get it done. And I'm hopeful that administration and the Hurricanes can be on equal terms and figure this out. That's my biggest wish.
Thank you. I see no further debate.
Debate.
All right. Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? So carries. Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. With that, we will return back to closed session. So a motion to go in camera.
Motion to slap you on the head.
Middleton Hope, all in favor? Any opposed? So carries.